Kia ora everyone, welcome to the Social Sustainability Committee. Social Sustainability Committee. Isn't it nice not having the sub on there? Kia ora everyone. Look, welcome. Great to see everybody here. Thank you very much for the attendance in the audience today there as well. Great to see the people that are going to be presenting today. Bit of a chilly night last night, wasn't it? Crikey, Charlie. What was in an Otaki? Oh yeah, all right, there's a tui ad right there. Okay, so I think we'll get on with things. Kathy, do you mind doing the karakia this morning? And blessing.
As we deliberate on the issues before us, we trust that we all will reflect positively on the communities we serve. Let us all seek to be effective and just, so with courage, vision and energy, we provide positive leadership in a spirit of harmony and compassion.
Awesome, thanks for that. Kathy. Right, moving on to item 3, apologies. We've got Sorka's apology from last meeting. If that could be recorded, it'd be much appreciated. I have Guy Burns as an apology, and Janet, thank you for being here today, and you may have to pop away a bit early, and same with you, Sonia, that's absolutely fine. Just acknowledging Kim on Zoom and Sorka on Zoom as well, and I had an apology from Jackie Elliott as well, if that could please be recorded too, would be much appreciated. Anyone else, do you think? It's pretty hard to say, apologise when you're not here, isn't it? If I could have a mover for that. Thank you, Lawrence. If I could have a seconder. Rob, that'd be much appreciated, thank you. All those in favour? That's passed, thank you very much. Item number 4, declarations of interest. Does anyone have a interest to declare in relation to items on the agenda? Kathy, perhaps yourself, with regards to going hard on the stadium? No, just kidding. I think it's a definite conflict there, what are you? One would say it's a supportive interest. So we'll just move on then. We've got public speaking time for items related to the agenda. I'm not aware of anyone. The groups that are here are actually part of the agenda, and I can't see anyone there that would be in the public gallery that's wanting to speak. So we will skip on to number 6. We have deputation. Actually, I'm just going to change 6 to 7. I'm just going to touch on members' business. Leave of absences. Are there any leave of absences requested? No, that's great. Any matters of an urgent nature? No, we'll bring that up in members' business, Kathy. And as part of the presentation as well, if you like. I'm going to move members' business to the end of the meeting, and we'll come back to that then. I don't need to move anything with regards to leave of absence? No, cool. Okay, we're moving to 6.1, which is deputations. So we have an update from the Kapiti Disability Advisory Group. Joanne, if I could ask you to come up to the table. Oh, up here. Okay, that's cool. Yep. Of course. Well, it's coming up to this end of the table, isn't it? Love it.
Interesting.
Hmm?
Just if you've got any questions, face Joanne directly.
Right. Okay, Joanne, thank you for coming today. Much appreciated having you here. This is a great step from my perspective that we've captured the Disability Committee into this process. As such, I just remind everybody that Joanne, when you're speaking to her, please speak face front so that she can read your lips, would be much appreciated. And please ensure that you are using your speakers as well, would also be much appreciated. So I shall leave that to you.
Thank you all very much. It's actually really good to connect. Like you said, I think there's an opportunity for the Disability Advisory Group to be heard by a broader range of people so that we can highlight issues that you may be able to progress. We had our meeting on Wednesday the 29th of April, and we've been invited to attend the training that Council are in partnership with around free chat GPT. And that was also an opportunity for us to discuss with them accessibility, because they hadn't actually sort of thought about it other than the venue. The venue is accessible, but they hadn't thought about it. They hadn't thought about it wider. So it's been a good opportunity to connect. We also wanted to make council aware about it's a new app called Synaptic app, which I can leave you the notes in, and it includes a screen reader for apps, and there will be a discussion later with the Disability Advisory Group and comms team to just make council aware, because we're aware that you're upgrading the website, for example, and it's just a matter of how accessible things like websites and documents are. And it's a good opportunity for me to highlight that many of the documents that go out from council, if they're in PDFs, are not accessible to screen readers. But I realise that there's an issue with Word documents because they can be changed. The strategy team, we had a meeting from the strategy team, and they're looking into what we call easy to read formats for strategy documents going forward, which is great. And there's a connection with People First, who provide a service around easy read documents. And then we had a presentation from the strategy team around the health update, and that was really good. Discussion around concerns for residents' access to health services, highlighting those who struggle financially if you need emergency care out of hours, and if you go to Team Medical, they'll often want payment up front, and that can be quite a significant cost to those who may be on benefits or financially not able to pay up front. A submission was agreed to by Council in the last long-term plan around disability approach and strategy. However, haven't seen anything yet. We know that part of it is resourcing for the team to be able to provide this work, but also I kind of want to mention that I was actually asked once if our funding, which I didn't even know we had, of $11,000 could go towards that. I agreed, but still haven't seen anything for that $11,000, so be interested to know where that went. We did a long-term plan submission this time around beach accessibility, exploring ways to make the beach accessible, but not just the beach, but also pathways to the beach. Many of you might be familiar with Ramati Beach. There are no footpaths on any of the roads to that beach. There's also it's actually quite dangerous to navigate if you've got children, because there's no way to get from the park to the beach without going through the waterfront car park. So that's a bit of a health and safety risk. And Kat Wild is going to come and meet with us and maybe discuss that issue and see what can be done. We've had an issue with dog attacks in the Kapiti region. You probably see a lot of social media posts on that. One of our group members is blind and has a guide dog. Her guide dog was recently attacked in Grey Ave. She couldn't tell what sort of dog because she's blind, but she was just aware that her dog was getting attacked. And the group wanted to highlight and create a plan around education to highlight that issue. And finally, we had 2 recommendations from our committee, well, from us to your committee that we hope that you may be able to progress for us. One is that the council produce a map identifying mobility car parks on the Kapiti Coast District from Paikokoriki to Otaki. We're aware of other councils that provide this. I believe Wellington City Council is one of them, possibly the Hut as well. We think this would be a really good addition. Well Able, who are a disability information service on Rimu Road, are often asked for it. So we saw that as an opportunity. The other matter that came up is that people with disabilities who display a mobility pass are able to park in mobility parks, but sometimes there are not mobility parks available. So they'll park in a regular park. Now that regular park may be further away and they may need more time. At present, they're not allowed to hang their mobility pass in a normal car park, and they're not allowed to extend their time. And we're seeking a recommendation that they have recognition to be allowed extra time for parking in a non-mobility car park if they display their mobility pass. So those are our two recommendations for your committee.
Yeah, just clarifying that, Joanne, are you saying that you people with a mobility pass obviously can park in mobility parks, but it's not a valid pass to use in just a standard park? So in other words, if you, like you said, if you went over a time limit or something like that, is it applicable up here? We don't have paid parking up here. There'd be things like coastlands or something like that, which is not...
No, it's applicable in, for example, the Woolworths car park in Waikanai.
Yes.
It would be applicable to anywhere that, for example, it could be applicable out here. If you couldn't get a mobility park and somebody was coming to a meeting here and they parked in one of your ordinary 2-hour car parks, but they might need longer than that because it might take them longer to get to the car park and back. They might need to allow, you know, extra time to get into the meeting and extra time to leave the meeting.
Likewise, down at Paraparaumu Beach, I think there's a 1-hour parking time restraint as well. Okay, that sounds more than fair enough as such.
Mr. Chair, I've got two recommendations here, so when you would like me to put those forward, just let me know.
Thank you for flagging that, Kathy. Much appreciated. Just clarifying, Kathy, are the recommendations that have been put forward here by officers that have come through from the group, or are they ones specifically that you've done?
They've come through from the meeting, but I don't know that they've had time, Monique, to come through this meeting.
Sure. I've got two here.
You have got the two.
Yeah, and I'll read them out. If they matched your ones, then that works fine as such. Excellent. Thank you very much for the... Monique, no, don't go away. Don't go away yet. First of all, thank you very much for that. I've got a couple of questions, but I'll just open the floor up. Does anyone have any questions for Joanne at all around any of this?
I do.
Lawrence.
Do we get a copy of the report that Joanne's just...
I was going to check with that. With regards to the minutes of your group, would the table be happy for me to circulate those or have those circulated when the committee meets as such? And of course, any speaking notes we can always circulate after the meeting, or if you wish, you can give them to us beforehand, and we can circulate them as part of the minutes. As part of the agenda for the upcoming meeting as well, if that would be helpful. Thanks for that, Lawrence. Anything else for you, Lawrence?
Yeah, I note that Martin, you did send out an email with the report in it, but I think it would be important that it gets tabled as part of our minutes, so it's recorded as part of this committee rather than just an email that you've sent to us.
Oh, look, I just popped that through because it came through to me quickly.
Yeah.
I guess what we're trying to do here is sort out a system and a mechanism that works effectively, and that's also, so appreciate the feedback.
So I guess I have a question about, I know we've had a lot of submissions a few submissions around accessibility to our meetings for people with disabilities and improving that. And you've also highlighted the need for us to improve our documentation so that it's more accessible. I look forward to more advice from you in helping with our staff on how we can improve things in terms of this. So I'm fully concur with us having you in this space as our advisory group to be able to help us with the things that most of us take for granted in today's world, but we need to be aware of those who are unable to participate due to limitations in other ways. So I appreciate that, Joanne, that you're here.
I was going to say, thank you for that, because I did highlight when I made my long-term plan submission a couple of years ago that at no stage, and in fact I saw it happen again this year, but I didn't make an oral submission, but at no stage were people asked about their accessibility requirements, and I would have thought that that's a very basic question that could be asked if you agree to be an oral submitter, that they come back and say, do you have any accessibility requirements? But it's not. And it was when I made my long-term oral submission, I was struck by the fact that the microphone was on a lectern, and if I'd been in a wheelchair, that would have been inaccessible. I also, because it was New Zealand Sign Language Week, did my opening paragraph in New Zealand Sign Language, but there was no interpreter, so if you'd been deaf and wanting to make a submission, that would have been an issue. as it is, I signed and interpreted myself, but I sort of feel like I shouldn't have to. And I'm aware that there's another deaf person who made a submission to the long-term plan and also has struggled with not having sign language interpreters. So I just make that comment that that's something you may have to consider funding at some point, or at least finding out if it's going to be needed for a meeting. And that needs a long lead-in time to book interpreters.
I guess that just highlights the value of having you coming through to these meetings, because we can start following up on this stuff as well.
Absolutely.
Ooh, who have I got next? You finished it? Yep. Okay, Rob.
Oh, thanks, Martin. Thanks, Joanne. That's a really, really great presentation. You talked about access through car parks to get to the beach. Now, this is quite a problem with fairly heavily cooked developments in the area where houses, a lot of houses and very few car parks, and you have to wander through them to get to where you're going. Do you find that a problem in other areas as well, other than the beach? Just access through cars, cars that parked everywhere, which perhaps could be better laid out with a specified pathway or walkway through them.
I will say it has been a problem, particularly for those who are vision impaired and parents of young children. Those who are vision impaired have to navigate, even with a guide dog, have to try and work out where to go, how to navigate their way. Now, it was very pleasing, even though there was a lot of public backlash, it was very pleasing to see that Coastlands recently upgraded the Woolworths car park to make that easier to navigate for families and for those with disabilities. So that was very pleasing to see. Why can I car park at the outside Woolworths is still an issue.
Okay.
There are probably other places, I haven't been to them all, but it is sometimes still an ongoing issue, and it would probably be worthwhile at some stage doing a bit of a survey of any big car parking areas, although now I think under new legislation there's less of a requirement to provide car parks. So, yeah, I would just recommend that this committee keep an eye out when you're out and about and just think, how easy is this to navigate?
Joanne, we're looking at establishing an urban panel in the council. And this could be, one of the requirements that in the design guides that we're looking at in the operative district plan. So it could be a requirement to put this facility in because it's it's a requirement, especially for older folk and handicapped people, and it really is a good one. No, thanks for bringing that up, and we'll follow that through. Thanks.
You make a good point, because often what works for disabilities works for older people as well, and Kapiti does have a higher demographic of older people.
Nigel.
Yeah, thanks, Joanne and Monique. Just wondering, the Disability Advisory Group, do you have automatic input into resource consent applications around new developments? And I'm thinking particularly significant developments. So there was a large development that's ongoing in Otaki. There's one planned for Kapiti Road. So the question is there an automatic process for inputting? And well, there should be, and perhaps that's something that could be looked at, because what happens is we're trying to fix problems afterwards rather than providing the solutions at the time. And I think those sorts of disability pathways should be part of resource consent processes. So I'm just raising that as a flag.
That is an interesting point, because often it's much easier to fix things before they're built, before they're fully developed, than afterwards. It's cheaper. We don't have automatic input. The council have been really proactive in their projects, so when they do a large development project, they will often come to us and talk about developments. For example, they're going to at some point do an upgrade to the Otaki pool, so there was a discussion around accessibility there. Things like that, really useful. So council are proactive, but developers, there's not that requirement.
Thank you, Nigel. Good point. Michael.
Thank you, Joanne. I see a lot of these problems seem to arise around commercial enterprises who have the majority of the big car parks where people who have requirements for parking accessible use. Does the disability group have access or have established direct communication with some of these commercial operators like Coastlands and the car park supermarkets usually are tendered out to private parking companies? So I'm just wondering if you've got channels there to make different allowances for how they operate and regiment these car parks.
To be honest, we've got limited contact. Coastlands hasn't been a problem for us, accessibility-wise. They've got more than enough mobility parks. That's not been an issue. Other providers, we don't. For example, I wouldn't know who to approach, for example, for the Woolworths car park. Is it owned by Woolworths? I call it the Woolworths car park in Waikano, but I actually don't know who owns it. That's not clear.
We do.
Okay, so there we go.
Can't blame anyone else for that one.
Most people wouldn't know who owns it, but that is tricky to navigate through there. At some point you have to cross a path, you have to cross the road. There's no zebra crossings there at all for that one. And there are some car parks that council administers that are mobility parks that are not, to me they don't meet requirements, but they have somehow been endorsed by council. So there is one outside Waimate Beach School, which is really handy if you are a disabled passenger. If you are a disabled driver, you have to get out. I broke my leg, so I used a wheelchair. I had to get out onto the road, wheel my chair down the road because there was no cut curb, down the road to where there was a cut curb, and then I was on the pavement. And I was like, this is dangerous. I did report it. I did file a sort of a complaint about that, and was told that it wouldn't be changed. Because it's fine for passengers, and I think they were assuming that it might be a school child, you might be dropping off a disabled school child. So that would be fine for that, but it's not, a lot of mobility parks are not actually universally good for everybody. Some might be on a hill. That's not great either. I think there's one outside Moby Dickens at Pauperin Beach. That's not on the flat. Yeah, so that's not great if you're in a wheelchair. So...
Really.
I just wanted to note as well, we're just going through a bit of a recruitment phase, and I really see the role with our council officers to be the conduit as well between private, so for example, an advocate for large kind of commercial development, bringing that within council and working alongside our advisory groups to kind of be the conduit. So I see that as our forward focus with the new envisaged team. So we've got 3 roles out currently at the moment, if you know of someone.
I'll just add, some people do come to us. So Ngā Manu are looking at a big accessibility upgrade, and they came to us to ask us some advice, and that's on their long-term plan, so it's not immediate, but they also looked at some low-hanging fruit that they could tick off right away, things to improve accessibility for disabled people. So some people are proactive. It really is hit and miss.
Excellent. Thanks very much for that, Joanne. Kathy, you're the councillor linked to that committee. Is there anything you want to add to the conversation at all?
No, I'm okay. We got through the 2 recommendations, so that was good. So,
Yep, okay, and that's fine.
Yeah.
One question from my end, with regards to the structure of your committee as such. I know with CAG, they've broken down into some working groups. They've got about 5 different work groups of people sort of concentrating on specific topics. Do you do anything like that in your committee as such?
No, we don't, but we do feed into various things. So we also feed into the cycleways, walkways and bridleways group.
Yep.
We used to feed into the road safety advisory group when they were there. We don't form into working groups, I think largely because it would be a matter of how do you, one person cannot represent all the impairment groups, so it would be something that the whole group as a whole would prefer to look at. So we're made up of a diversity of impairment groups. So we've got blind, hearing impaired, we've got parent of a non-speaking autistic person. I'm autistic and deaf, but though I don't sign. We've got two wheelchair users, power chair users. One of them also has an adaptive bike, so he goes along all the trails and things, and uses the beach. Just trying to think who else we've got. So we've got a diversity of impairment groups, so that when we discuss an issue, we try and get all those perspectives, because otherwise it can fail to identify an issue for one particular impairment group.
And I think coming back to Lawrence's comment around the requirements that your group has, perhaps we need to be looking at each of our different committees in different ways on how we interact with them that works to be most constructive for an outcome for that group. That sort of stuff. So with CAG, it's one way, but perhaps with this group it's a different way, or a different formula that works. So quite happy to work with you guys to try and figure out, well, not try to figure out, but just to work on that so that we get better outcomes with regards to what you're trying to achieve through that group as well. Because I think it's vitally important that council officers are able to interact with the group with regards to feeding into projects, feeding into plans and that sort of scenario, but there is a wider community aspect of this as well, which potentially comes down to an advocacy role. As Monique, you were pointing out, that can be both a council officer and a council or elected members role potentially as well. Kathy.
I just wanted to say to Joanne, with people with intellectual disabilities, it's as well represented, and it's good because the work that you're doing also covers people with intellectual disabilities, even though some of them might not have the intellect to, grasp what was happening. The work that you do actually does, benefit a lot of people with intellectual disabilities. Yeah.
They get a voice too. They get a voice too, and I actually forgot that they weren't actually at our last meeting, but normally they get a voice too, and they'll raise matters that are really pertinent around accessibility for them. For example, the council were really proactive and put out a lot of maps about where to drive while all these roadworks were going on, but actually didn't put out anything to tell people where to walk. And for people with intellectual impairments who don't drive, that was an issue. They didn't know where they were supposed to go and how they were supposed to navigate the streets around here. So they did provide some valuable insight.
That's much appreciated. Two things from my end. One, can I ask for an invite to your next meeting? That would be much appreciated. And I think, Monique, I mentioned to you, through our EMBs, it would be quite nice to capture all these subgroup meeting times. As such, we don't currently capture them in that document. That would be, we capture council meetings and bits and pieces, but those groups aren't captured, and they'd be quite handy. I think there'd be perhaps council officers, elected members who might be interested in turning up to those sorts of meetings just so to hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Janet, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I think we need to just have a further discussion about that, rather than making a decision about.
Oh no, I'm not making a decision. I'm just flagging it might be something to consider.
Yeah, no, because I saw nods. I don't want to start to take that as an instruction to do that right now. We need to have a further conversation about how we manage elected members attending advisory groups. Yeah.
Fair enough. Excellent. Thank you very much, Joanne. Thank you very much, Monique. Much appreciated. Great having you here. We look forward to seeing you at the next meeting as well, or even a representative, if you like, from one of your groups or something along that sort of line would be much appreciated.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we have two recommendations.
Oh, my apologies. That's right. We can deal with the recommendations, I think, ourselves. That's no problem. But thank you for reminding me, Kathy. We have two recommendations here that have come through the group. The first recommendation, I've actually got three here. The first is that we received the recommendations from the Kapiti Advisory Group. But recommendation A recommends to Council to investigate producing a map identifying mobility parks on the Kapiti Coast District, Pea Pakokariki to Otaki, which sounds like an excellent idea. But would I have support? The second recommendation recommends to Council to investigate permitting people with disabilities who are displaying their mobility pass be allowed extra time for parking in non-mobility parks. Perhaps I should have asked for this to have been popped on the screen. My apologies for that. That's them up there. I'll just give you guys a couple of minutes to read those. Okay, Lawrence, happy to move that. Kathy, you happy to second? Yep. Okay. All those in favour? Aye. Excellent. Can I just ask what is the next step for this recommendation? Would that be going to council meeting, or would that be going to strategy and finance?
Come with the reports and recommendations from standing committees to council.
Standing committees, fantastic. Thank you very much for that clarity. Excellent. That's marvellous. Okay. Yes, Nigel.
Just a question in relation to that. Councils have had the onerous task in the past of producing comprehensive maps of different things. So these are presumably public car parks, as opposed to, because there are disability car parks in private land, like hospital spaces and things like that. So it's around setting parameters of these sorts of things, right? So you set what you can set, but you have to know that you can't set everything. So
That's a fair call.
As long as everybody's aware of that.
Yep.
You could put a call out to the public if you've got, private ownership, if you've got spaces.
Okay.
Like, say, for instance, Lawrence, I don't know if you guys have got, so you've got disability space, but it's not something council would necessarily pick up on. Do you know what I mean? But other agencies can maybe feed into it.
I would suggest that one of the parameters would be publicly accessible buildings. So like, for example, Impact Hub, public there often, so you should expect that there's disability car parks there, or accessible car parks, sorry. That would be a
I've
parameter.
noted that, Nigel. I'll certainly be following it up, and it's maybe something to bring up when it comes to the council table as well. It's a very good point.
Just some question marks around it.
Johnny.
Yeah, just in addition to that, there was the times for parking in disabled spots. I mean, I don't know whether we can actually have any influence on privately owned car parks, that's all. It's just something that needs to be considered.
And that's maybe an advocacy role. I think that's what Monique was alluding to. They're recruiting in the connected community space at the moment. That could be part of that kaupapa with regards to reaching out to some of the larger organisations. Just again, you've got the issue, and I think that's what Nigel's just brought up. It's very relevant. That if we do a map that's just our one, say for argument's sake, then people might think they're the only ones available as well. So a little bit more thought has to go into this. But from my end, it's good to capture it and then see how we expand it out from there. But your point's well taken. In regards to that as well. I mean, again, this is one of the reasons why I want to bring these sorts of things through to this committee, is so we can start sort of pushing back or sort of start broadening them out and then and start ticking them off as well. Yes, Lawrence.
I just note that often on Google Maps, it has the ability to load onto those, whether they're a disability or accessible car parks at locations. And they often prompt for questions. If you've been to a place, Google Maps often prompts a question on whether there are accessible entryways, whether there are accessible parking at that venue. So there is information that's already out there about that. Sometimes it's accessing that information.
And look, and having that on that form as well, because that could be a good, again, it's just awareness really, isn't it?
Yeah, and rather than reinventing the wheel, using what's information's already
Definitely.
current and live.
Yep. Yeah. No, good point. Kathy.
I was going to say, to me, it's really quite simple. I mean, as councillors, we have a card. We just put it on our dashboard, and we can park longer than the parking times allow. So with people with disabilities, they could just put their disability card up, and they can stay in the car park. I mean, it's quite simple.
I hear what you're saying, Kathy. I think the issue is not so much with regards to council car parks. You did right. It's more on the lines of a person assumes that they can do that in coastlands. They do that, and it's not recognised. Then potentially there's blowback on us as well.
Yeah, but that's why it needs to be recognised. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, good point. Excellent. Right, we'll move on to the next one, which actually we're on to updates now. So our first update, we're going to have Trevor and Sonia present on the indoor sports feasibility study. I've just moved these around a little bit just due to some timing issues. The next one is going to be the housing work program. No, sorry, it's not. It's going to be the CAG, the Capital Health Advisory Group, and then the housing update after that. Sorry, Stephen. I have a flat white milk with one. If you, sorry. Ooh, not quite the right one there.
Kia ora tātou. So this piece of work was undertaken and begun last year as a feasibility study to assess the need for an indoor sports facility on the Kapiti coast. Trevor's been leading the charge and as requested by Councillor Spears, we are now reporting back on what we've found. So over to you, Trevor.
Oh, good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity just to give you an update on the indoor stadium feasibility study. I'd like to introduce Deb Hurdle from RSL, who undertook the study for us. She's going to run through a quick slideshow of an update for you, an overview and the key findings from the report. And then from that, we're keen to answer any questions you may have following that slideshow. So I'll pass you on to Deb to run through a quick slides presentation.
Thanks, Trevor. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you this morning. What I wanted to do is, there's a very well written report that's been put in front of you which summarises the recommendations from the report, but it was really wanting to give you some of the rationale and the thinking that went in behind those recommendations so that you feel comfortable with those recommendations. So first of all, this is the methodology that we followed. Now, I'm not going to explain in detail each one on this particular slide, but what you'll find is in the following slides, I'll refer to which aspect of the methodology related to the particular slides. But I'll just give you a moment to cast your eye over that. So everyone's happy with that, and move on. So one of the things that the first thing we did was actually look at the existing network of indoor facilities across the district. Looking at this, it actually looks like you've got a lot, but it's deceiving because what you've got is a lot of relatively small facilities that many of them are ageing, they're not fit for purpose, and while they're suitable, while a lot of the community halls are suitable for active recreation, so things like dance, yoga, Pilates, martial arts, they're not actually suitable, they're not big enough for indoor sports, such as pickleball, badminton, volleyball, basketball. So it kind of is deceiving, and so that's why we really need to look at what there was available and how each of them is used. The other thing you'll see from that diagram is that the coast is heavily reliant on Ministry of Education facilities, and the problem with Ministry of Education facilities is that they're not accessible during the day. And what we're finding on the coast is that whilst the colleges have been agreeable to community use in the past, and certainly with Paraparamu College, there's an agreement with Council, and Council helped fund their second gym. But the problem is that the roles are growing quite quickly, even though we've got an ageing population. We're one of the few regions across, one of the few districts across the wider Wellington region, that has actually got a growing population. And it's growing in all areas. And so what's happening is there's greater demand on the college facilities, and they're starting to pull back on the community use. And some clubs have actually found that, you know, sessions that they used to run have now been cancelled because the college wants the use for the schools themselves. So then what we did is, oh, have we missed? Oh no, I think there's a couple missing. One of the things we did is we looked at, when we looked at the numbers, and I'll just I'll just leave this for a minute. When we looked at the numbers of facilities, there appear to be 6 usable facilities. So we have the colleges, Paraparamu and Kapiti College both have 2 gyms, but only one of those is available for, one of those at each of the colleges is available for community use. Otaki College has a gym. It's a small gym. It's in quite poor condition, and is not really used for sport as such, but it is used for those other active recreation activities I referred to. Napurapura, even though it is an educational facility, it has very little use by the wānanga, and it is mostly community use. So we've counted that as 2 facilities. And then the other facility that is well used is the Waikino Memorial Hall. Now that facility is very popular with badminton. Badminton see that as the best facility in the district, and the reason for that is it's got very high ceilings and also it has very little natural light, which often interferes with badminton play, so that's why that one's heavily used. It's also quite heavily used by skate, and there's a very active skate school or skate shop at Paraparamu Beach, and they run a lot of activities around the coast. But when you look at those, you can't treat them as whole facilities. And so what we did is we used, Sport NZ have developed guidance around how you assess accessibility of a facility. And so generally, if you're looking at it very conservatively, you would treat a school facility as actually only 0.25 or at best 0.5 of a facility. So when you look at it that way, it actually reduces the number of available courts. So applying that rationale, you actually end up with 4.25 facilities that are available for community use. So Otaki College effectively is 0.25, Napurapura is 2, and then between them, Kapiti College and Paraparamu College make up the other 2. So the other thing, the other benchmark that Sport NZ introduced was you look at your population, and then you, in terms of the numbers of courts that you need for any population, is 1 court per 7,800 people. So on that basis alone, you would be looking at 7.5 courts needed for the Kapiti Coast District. We say expected population there. Unfortunately, we're still having to use 2018 census data because the latest data is due to be released this month, but unfortunately we've had to use the 2018 figures in terms of population for 2023 and 2043. So that's how we got to the deficit of 3.25 courts. Now, when we, one of the other things that we did is we contacted all the current users of the facilities, and we spoke to them about what access they have. We also spoke to the facility owners, and all of the facility owners confirmed that their facilities are under pressure. From the college perspectives, as I've mentioned, they're starting to pull back because they need the resources for their own college use, but also they are heavily used. What time they have available for the community is heavily used. Users of the facilities are saying, particularly for the likes of basketball, which is probably the biggest activity from an indoor perspective on the coast, they're having to pull back, they're having to limit numbers, and it's not giving them the opportunity for growth. The only place where that doesn't apply is Otaki, where they do have those 2 wonderful courts, and that has been, I'm never a great believer in build it and they'll come, which I think a lot of people try to suggest with public facilities. But certainly in Otaki, it has had a huge impact on the number of people playing basketball in that community, and they would say the impact that it's had on youth development and youth behaviour because they were able to get them off the streets and get them involved with basketball. And that's one of the reasons why so many groups like to work with young people and engage them in sport. So when we spoke to the current users, their view was that they were short around 90 hours a week of what they could use if it was available. We're always a little cautious with that and reckon there's probably 20% either way in terms of that, so that would bring it down to 70. But again, that would support that deficit of the 3.25 courts based on what the stakeholders are telling us and aligning it with the Sport NZ benchmarking. So the next thing we did was we considered potential sites and we looked at pros and cons of each of the sites. So we looked at, there's a church area that is no longer used on the other side of the railway lines in Paraparamu. We looked at a piece of land that's between Mitre 10 and the airport and the placemakers, which is a commercial site. We looked at Aotearoa. We looked at Paraparamu College, and we looked at the site that runs just on the west side of Brett Ambler Way, between the Aquatic Centre and where the new development is going to be. Where we got to is that coastline site, the site beside the Aquatic Centre, from our perspective, was the preferred location. It's council owned, which has advantages in itself because you've already owning the land. That will help keep the price down. It's close to other community facilities, so it's right next door to the pool. It's very close to the library. It's close to the town centre. Obviously, with the new transport hub, that's a bonus as well because it is still within walking distance of that. There's already good existing car parking there with the swimming pool. Close to a good user base. So with the populations of Paraparamu, the colleges aren't that far away if they also were wanting to use the facility. And we saw it as an opportunity. Also, you could use it for if you were looking at, rather than having a standalone community centre, you could build aspects of the community centre into this facility and make it more of a community hub. And that's certainly becoming more and more popular around the country. Certainly in Lower Hutt, what was the Walter Nash Indoor Court Stadium, that's now connected to the local library. In other areas in New Zealand, in smaller communities, it's quite common to have community centre type facilities, counselling services, social services operating out of the same building that is an indoor court facility. And quite often they're connected to other facilities such as the pool. What we've done when we've looked at this stage is look at it as a standalone facility. But if you wanted to, you could actually take it further. You could actually connect it to the pool, and then you could have a shared reception area. You could have the cafeteria is right there, and so you could combine them even more closely. But certainly from the perspective of how we looked at it and how we wrote the report and the budgets, it was on the basis that it's standalone. So here's an outline. I appreciate none of you, unless you've got exceptional eyesight, are going to be able to read what the components are. But it was really just to give you an idea of what could be done. One of the things we've looked at doing, and we'd considered it before we spoke to them, but we did speak to the Youth Council prior to Christmas, and they were very enthusiastic about the idea of a climbing wall. So we patted ourselves on the back a bit that we'd already considered that. But one of the things we've proposed here, and it comes from learnings from other parts of the country, is to actually have that, not to have it at the back of a court, because if you have it at the back of the court, when it's in use, you can't hire the court out. So while you're making money on the climbing wall, you're not going to be making money at the same time on the actual court. So the idea was to try and separate those away from each other. We've built in a small kind of a coffee cart type thing, because certainly if you're having tournaments and things, people always like to go and be able to grab a drink and a snack. So that component is built into it as well. And there are opportunities there. You would need a kitchen. It means that you could use the facility as a function centre as well as an indoor court centre, and meeting room space. Often the meeting rooms are the areas that become popular with other indoor activities, such as the likes of yoga and Pilates, where they quite like having carpeted areas. And unlike fitness centres, there's not a lot of sweating that goes on, so the carpet stays quite clean rather than getting worn as in fitness facilities. And you can also see there that what we've done is anticipated that the space is sufficient that you could add on more courts in the future. Now, when we did the design of this and the budgeting for it, what we were looking at was a standard type build. So the least expensive build that you can do is what we call design and build, and they are considerably cheaper than most traditional council facilities, which is the concrete slab and steel type facilities. And so obviously there's a range of price. So we've looked at it as a mid-range, and so an indicative cost is the 17.8 million that we've proposed. Now, I'm sure, as you appreciate, the council project management team will certainly appreciate from the major projects they've done recently. Price is a moving feast, in that construction costs in recent years have skyrocketed, and so it's very hard to put a stick in the sand and say this is absolutely what it will cost. But at the moment, the kind of guide is it's around about 5 million per court, and then the cost goes up from there depending on the specs that you apply and the additional things that you add into the facility. What I wanted to do here is just show you this is an image. This was a design and build image of a facility in Christchurch. This is an aquatic centre, an indoor court and a fitness centre. As you can see, it's quite attractive looking. This is a shot of an indoor court facility in Selwyn. In the last 3 years, they've built an 8-court facility. And these dividers are when they have futsal, they just put fabric dividers up between the courts so that they can get more courts in use. This one is another design and build, and it just shows you that it's the facade that makes the building attractive, and you can incorporate any sort of designs you want. In our process, we didn't have an opportunity to consult with iwi, but I think it's certainly in the next phase and any design phase you'd want to engage with iwi, and I think you could incorporate Kapiti Coast relevant and interesting features into the design. And this last shot is just a shot. This is an interactive wall that they've got at Selwyn, and as I mentioned, the lessons learned there, the young people using it are having to stand on the court to use it, so that means that they're losing income from the hire of the court while they're gaining income from the use of that back wall. I think that in the report we've done, we've set out for you operational budgets with any facility that is council owned. There will always be an ongoing contribution. The level of that will depend on the amount of income that you can bring into a facility, and how you can help to increase that is with good programming in the facility in the off-peak periods. So the peak use is normally between 4 and about 9 4 in the afternoon to about 9 at night, sometimes 10, depending on the activities. Off-peak time is that time before 4 o'clock, and when you can really make good use of that, particularly for a community that's got an ageing population, is that's when you run programs and initiatives that attract older adults in. Pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports in New Zealand. It's very attractive for people who may have already played tennis but are finding tennis is a bit hard as they get a bit older. softer ball, bigger racket. Also, you can run initiatives for people with disabilities who may not be working and who have time on their hands that they can go in during the day. And it's another opportunity which isn't in conflict, it's not in competition with fitness centres, but you can run activities, movement and learning activities for mums and bubs. A lot of facilities, Selwyn in particular, 22% of their income and use of their, or 22% of their use of their facility is driven by programs and initiatives that they run from basically 7 in the morning until about 4 in the afternoon. And 8% of that is pickleball. So it shows that, you know, it is a growing activity. So the trick with any facility is to try and get it used during the day. And the way to do that is good programming. So that's me. If anyone's got any questions, feel free.
Okay. Thank you very much for that presentation. Trevor, do you have anything you want to add to that at all?
No, not at this stage. Just happy to answer any questions you may have.
I can't believe there's only 1 or 2 questions. Okay.
Sorry, Martin.
No. Just bear with me here for a second. Just having a little bit of think about how the best way is to approach this with regards to things, and I'd like some guidance around this as well. This is a very, very big topic, and this is a topic that's going to need more than just the interaction of this group by a country mile. And it's sort of saying, oh, there's a list of recommendations here. There's one I don't agree with, but my thoughts are we'll do some questions now, but don't try and sort everything out.
No.
To me, this needs a workshop, or it's going to need a briefing or a substantial interaction a little bit further up the food chain than us, because most of us will be involved in it anyway. And Sonia, it sounds like you're going to potentially comment on that. But in regards to this, because I'll just go first, the question I have is, one, is it big enough? Would it, could it in any way have a multi-storey frontage to accommodate a community centre, landscaping around the outside of it? We made a mistake with the aquatic centre by not quite making it big enough. You know, so what size do we need to host the national events as such? They're all big questions, and they're not the sort of questions I would expect that would be able to be answered here. Because the one thing I do note is this is a report for the need of a facility. This is not the end of this conversation or anything like that. This is the piece of work that's coming in as the first step. And I guess that's sort of addressing to you, Kathy, is that I know you've got a lot of concerns as well. They're all valid. They're all valid, but we asked for a needs assessment, and what has happened is that you've gone out, we've looked at the district, we now can quantify the need, and we've got some base suggestions with regards to what we could comfortably achieve in a certain price bracket, shall we see, to meet those expectations. And I do think this needs a fuller conversation. Would that be a fair call, Mayor Holborough? As such. So when I talk to the recommendations, and I will get to questions in a moment, I'm happy to support all the recommendations up to H. H says, recommend to Council that the Social Committee supports officers undertaking a detailed investigation into provision. I don't think we need to make that call here. That's something that I'll just drop that recommendation off, because what we're doing is pretty much, well, seeing this arrive, and we are watching it as it goes past, up to more than likely social. I'm picking more inclined to be up to a workshopping situation in the first instance to interact with councillors and community boards at that level. Would that be a fair comment? Oh, and Kim's in there as well. So with that in mind, I will start going with questions. And I was going to start with Kim first, if that's okay.
Kia ora. After what you've just said, Martin, that's kind of what I was going to ask. In terms of asking a question, so I probably don't have one, but one of the ones on my mind was, is it big enough? Because I see there's only 3 courts. So given what you've said, yes, I do, there's a lot of reservations, and I do agree that going forward and doing any kind of feasibility stuff without having the workshops in behind it and fully understanding this, I think that's a good idea to drop that recommendation. So I don't think I'll ask any questions because they are around all those types of, is it big enough? You know, that's a lot of money. We've just been through an LTP process where people are saying, let's cut the fat, and then we're going, yeah, let's build a $17 million building. So I might just hold all that discussion for later.
Yep. Thanks for that, Kim. You bring up good points. Cost is an issue. I would like to think that there's opportunity here for cross-subsidy and for us to be going for significant grants in this space, with both regional council, government, and lotteries and other groups as well. This is an area that we haven't necessarily pushed too hard for other projects, and certainly an area that would need to be, should we say, pressuring all the opportunities that we have as such.
So just to clarify, yes, this is the report on the feasibility study, and so fundamentally what we've established through the study is we are at least 3 courts down as we stand right here, right now. So even if we're not, that's what we've kind of established. We know we're lacking, and in fact what we already know is that given we can't start building immediately, we're going to have to, there's a whole lot of implications around that about what that future looks like. And so fundamentally today it's reporting that we know now, we've done the studies to show that we are short, and that's, I think the recommendations basically are about how we progress forward. The intention is to review what we know now and understand how we can move forward with it, and also work in a forward-thinking way so that if funding, because fundamentally it's not an LTP, this is not a funded process. And so the next step is also to get us to a place that if funding comes up externally, that we are also potentially ready to apply for that, and that sort of, so that's where we're going today. So happy to answer questions, but we're also still, basically what we know now is that we don't have enough sports courts. And I think we've known that for a while. We've just definitely confirmed that. And so I guess that's so all the questions will be answered as we go through the process. So there we go.
So thank you for that, Sonia. One small correction I would make is we actually do have $5 million aside in a budget for a community centre. Yes. You know, so if there's an integration process amongst all that, we do it, which to me makes sense. We try to get as much bang for our buck with regards to the one facility rather than having multiple facilities. And so it's that challenge as well, because you can say, well, we can do it in stages. Well, as we know, the cheapest stage is right now. So get as much done as you can, because we know other stages, although they might sound great, if they're not done in the initial plan, can be decades away. Anyway, we'll get on to some questions. Rob.
Oh, thanks, Martin. I've just had 4 speakers, I think, answer my questions several times over. Thank you very much. But no, I just want to make a comment as well. It's an exciting project. You put a lot of time into it, and you've established a need, and I think that's overwhelmingly obvious. Just as an architect, you've presented drawings here which are pretty down to some finite detail. You've got car parks and things, the layout of access ways. That's not final, of course. No. It's just concept saying, look, we've got car parks. You know that's in an area of a community centre redevelopment. And what I'd like to see is some integration of the aquatic centre, this facility, and of course the future community centre, courtyards, open space, interactions. And with that use of space, you might actually be able to sort of have an overlap of activities or something like that. But yeah, let's look at the whole lot as a whole in context study. And of course we have a concept stage, which this is really just before a concept stage actually. It's just establishing a requirement. We've sort of got a site. Then the next stage, of course, would be concept to preliminary sketch plans, then advanced sketch plans, then working drawings. Well, we're nowhere near any of that really. So that's just getting it into perspective.
No, thanks for that, Rob. Much appreciated.
The next part of the project would be do a business case for the project as well, which one would take all that, like you just discussed as well, and that would feed in with workshops and going out to the community as well. So we'd just like that be the next part of the project anyway, to get to that point. And then if, like Sonia said, if external funding did come available, we'd be shovel ready to go as well. So we're looking at, by that business case, we'll be looking at external avenues as well.
Just another comment too. We do have... Sorry.
Just wait for the microphone there, Rob.
We do have some big developments being talked about in the area, and perhaps we can attach ourselves into that. Yeah, I'll park that one. Yeah,
I'm sure that's on the radar.
Yes, we've already had discussions around that one, so we're looking at external funding as well. So yeah.
Sorry, Johnny.
Yeah, thanks. Look, besides the question of where we find 17 million bucks, I see the option of the different facilities or the different sites that you looked at.
Sorry, Johnny, can I just ask if you might maybe speak to your mic? I
Yep.
just can't hear you too well.
It's probably through my beard or something. Just the different sites that you looked at. The old Raumati pool building is sort of vacant at the moment. Was that considered as in this sort of process or not?
Not really, because it wouldn't be big enough. If you look at the size, we're already 3 courts now for demand, and also it wouldn't allow for future growth as well. So with this site, one of the big factors was we could allow for future growth in years to come.
So it was considered but then discounted?
Yeah, very quickly, unfortunately, just with the size and location of it, and also the car parking around it as well. So yeah, it just wouldn't be workable in that location, I don't think.
Thank you.
Yeah, look, I think a big point for it being here is your car parking. That's why we couldn't, I dare say, even look down anywhere near Paraparaumu Beach or anything along that sort of line. But also access to rail as well, I think, is a big consideration for people moving and coming to what would be hopefully potentially regional events there. And the back's also in Paraparaumu. Sorry, Nigel.
Yeah, just I understand you're probably constrained by the brief. You can only research what you're able to research. I'm increasingly sounding like a champion for Poirua City, but the Te Rauparaha Arena is just a superb space that connects with a pool, the Pātika, a library. Fantastic little art gallery in there as well, all of those sorts of things, and the sports facilities, and actually quite a bit of open space around it. So what that leads to is, are we looking at securing a site that would allow for that kind of thing? Let's be really ambitious about this, rather than just going, well, we could fit this thing in here, and also being future-proof. So we've got 3.25 courts short now, but in 2043, I think you said it's going to be 7 point something. So we obviously need to build for the future, right, and work towards that. I personally blame Angelo Robinson. It's all his fault. When he started Hoop Club Capri with Kenny McFadden back in the day, that has been just one of the greatest success stories ever. So they've created a really good problem for us to try and solve. But yeah, so the driver to fix a site, and so I would like to think that even the site that you've identified as an ideal site, does that allow for a significant expansion, or do you have to go to Aotearoa Park or somewhere like that?
No, that was why we identified this site as a prime location for the indoor stadium, because it did have expansion or room there to expand in years to come. So you could potentially add on another 3 or 4 courts in years to come as the population grows and demand grows as well. So that's one of probably the main driver of actually identifying that site, because it does allow for future growth. And also now we could build on like the rock climbing walls, but you could allow for sort of commercial activities in there as well, like Jungle Rama and those sort of trampoline park as well now, so it gets actually further income to bring in and help the costs, the ongoing operational costs as well. So you could factor those sort of things in now, and also allow for the community space with meeting rooms and things like that as well. So that's why we did pick that space.
And the other thing too is everybody underestimates the requirement for car parking, and it's actually it's expensive to put car parking space in there, and there isn't any. Allowing for what's there currently at the pool, if you go there on any reasonably busy time, that car park is full. Councillors get to drive around in circles, do laps every morning, trying to find a park here. That's interesting. So yeah, that's a big expense, which I think needs to be factored into the plan at some point.
Yeah,
but anyway, well done on a comprehensive report.
Thank you, Nigel. Lawrence.
Great, thank you. I was a little surprised by the fact you looked at a property across the railway lines of an old church. Because it wasn't mentioned in the report, but the placemaker's potential down there was, which is an interesting thing. I just want to signal a couple of thoughts from me. One is the projected shortage in 2043 still includes the use of the colleges, which I would suggest is not even a possibility. Sorry? Maybe. Depends on the government. But in terms of the two local colleges here in Paraparaumu, those gyms will no longer be accessible in 2043 at current. I would even suggest in 5 years' time. So, so I just think we need to correct some numbers in that feasibility study around that, and just make that really clear in 2043. Actually, our shortage is more like 8. Okay. The other thing I would like just to signal is if we're going to build a facility like this and there's going to be something related to maybe a community centre in there, then I think we also need to look at a youth development component of that to be added into the view of that space. The other thing, without stating the obvious, is we've already got a cafe at the swimming pool. Doesn't make sense to me to compete with ourselves with one across the road. So that I think there's some comments just around that as well. And as part of the youth development, I would see if we've got a kitchen in there, the opportunity for training for our young people with Work Ready Kapiti, some of the other organisations that work in that space, to give opportunity for development of some of the skills around hospitality, potentially in that space as well. So just want to, I think our dream could be bigger than what's actually there and get better bang for our 17 million. By adding maybe another couple of million, we could do something pretty beautiful for our community. So yeah, I also would signal it's too small.
Yeah. Look, they're all very valid points, Lawrence. First thing I looked at with my hospitality background was, why even have a kitchen in there? You'd be better off to have that as an annex off the side, because you just do really want to maximise your footprint down there. But I think part of it, people talk about Brewtown and that sort of stuff over here. Well, I can't see anything why we can't have something more family orientated and maybe more polytech orientated, feeding on what you're saying. And that could be partnership arrangements with regards to shared cost as well. That sort of stuff. I think there's a lot of conversation happening. So we've got space there, and my off the cuff view is we're better to go for gold now because we're going to need it relatively shortly. This is not something where it's going to be built and all of a sudden we've met the demand straight away. We'll almost be maxed out and that sort of stuff. So we need to be future focused with regards to what we're looking at here. Definitely. Thank you for your comments, Kathy.
Oh, thank you. Just wondering, did you engage with any people with disabilities? And I'm just thinking around, wheelchair basketball or things like that when you did your study?
No, not specifically. We spoke to a number of basketball groups, but not with disability, and not disability groups in particular. Any facility would need to have good disability access, and if it was going to be if it was connected to the aquatic centre, or if there were going to be meeting rooms and things upstairs, it would have to have a lift to make sure that people can get in and out. So disability access is definitely a very big component of any indoor court facility.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I think underlying that is our age-friendly approach. I think, as we heard this morning, using that as a measuring stick, it's not just about a disability, it's about our older community as well. Very similar issues. So no point well taken, Kathy.
And I've got a meeting with Basketball New Zealand coming up as well, just to talk around those discussions around their requirements for those type of events as well, that we can host them. So yeah.
And Trevor, when you're having those conversations, would I be assuming you'd be asking about joint funding opportunities as well?
Oh, definitely, yes. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you. Janet.
Yeah, thank you for this excellent feasibility study. It's really provides us with a really good platform to launch the rest of the talking and conversations around this project. I just wanted to touch on the recommendations and the suggestion around stopping at H. So the only difference between G and H is one of delegation. So I'm just wanting clarity whether our intention is that we don't do a detailed investigation, or whether we don't want. So basically, if we move G, we kind of need to move H, because we can't instruct staff to continue with this work. We need to, as a committee with the delegations as they stand, that would need to be a recommendation to council.
I guess in relation to that, G talks about agreeing that officers should undertake an investigation. All we're doing is agreeing to it. H, actually, we're putting a recommendation in there that we go that we are getting council officers to do an investigation. I don't. A recommendation to council.
But if we agree that officers should do it, then we're saying that.
Well, my personal view
they
is
should do it or shouldn't do it. I'm just a little bit confused.
My view is that there's a step before that. The step before that is whether we're workshopping or whether we are discussing this further, rather than jumping straight into suggesting the councils do a feasibility a feasibility report or look at developing this. To me, there's a step missing between G and H. As such, I personally think we need to recommend H. As such, we've agreed that officers should undertake a detailed investigation. This will be put up as a report. This report's not going to stop here. We're feeding into it. As such, it's just how, for me, it's how it reads. We recommend to council that social sustainability supports officers undertaking a detailed investigation provision of a community indoor court facility, including understanding any benefits of including the community centre within this facility. I would hazard to guess that there's people sitting at this table that would prefer a larger discussion, a lot larger discussion around this. Potentially that limits this discussion. That's why I prefer to remove it, because it doesn't limit anything. All we're doing is saying, yes, we've seen this report. We agree that no more work needs to be done on it, and it's now moving through to the next level. I think there would be people at this table that wouldn't agree that what's been currently proposed is what we want to see, and potentially that's how this could be taken. And that's my view on that.
Well, I think if what you're saying is what your intention is, then you remove G as well, because there's no point in agreeing with something unless there's a kind of action that comes out of it. I'm just keen to, if staff could respond as to what these kind of recommendations.
I think the intention was by investigation is to follow through that next steps of doing the workshop. So as part of what investigation entails is workshopping, doing that next step of planning, looking at how the site will. Actually, our first step is to identify whether the site is usable, because it's been identified that we need to do some geotech work. So under investigation is that broad spectrum of just moving through the process of working through what this looks like, where we can actually locate it, and what we can include into the working model of it. So it's kind of, we are just at the beginning of it. And I think that's what our intention was by investigation, was to be allowed to continue on with that process, really, so that we'll continually update and come to you with where we're at and what it looks like. That's what the intention of investigation was.
Yeah,
so it will still be consultations. We still have to go to community. We've definitely got to talk to iwi. There's all the layers of whether or not the community centre or community space, what that looks like, whether it's youth, whether there's a youth facility inside that. There's so many more layers yet that we're, including, is it big enough? Yeah, that's right. All that sort of stuff. So I think that's by investigation. We're just asking to be able to continue through the process of looking at the.
Yeah. So if we move the recommendations, if we pass the recommendations up to G, so that we agree with that kind of in principle.
Yes.
Does that enable that work to continue? That's all good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you for the clarity, Madam Holbrook.
Yeah, we'd just like to carry on with the business case, get that underway, and also some geotechnical work around the area as well.
Trevor, there's no issue with regards to moving this forward. It's just sometimes in wording we can get tripped up on things further on down the track. As such, I want to try and keep it as open as possible rather than limiting anything at the moment. Lawrence.
My question is just related to funding. Obviously, this is in train as a project. We've done a feasibility study. We don't yet have a mandate from our community to pursue this outside of we've got a feasibility study as an organisation to say there's a need. What I've heard through the long-term plan is our community is saying get rid of the bells and whistles, is what I've heard pretty clearly. Whether this would be something that would sit in that. So my question is, the funding for this and the ongoing work, is that already budgeted for in current flows and in the LTP? And how much of that are we going to consume if we rush this into, is it going to require more pretty quickly that we're going to have to consult on? So it's around the funding. Is that already in play? Are we asking for more work and more funding that should be used somewhere else that's more urgent? It's probably a really complicated question, and the CE might want to answer that. But
So a lot of the work we can do in-house at the moment using staff and resourcing that already have inside operational budgets.
Okay.
Some of the work will fall into a general CapEx budget anyway, and then we'll get to a point where we won't be able to do anything else until we get some money. So we're just trying to push, keep moving with our internal resources as much as we can, and we'll get to a point where there will have to be a decision about where the money comes from, and then that'll be obviously sit with you and community to figure out what the priorities are. And that's where we're also engaging in conversations with potential developers and or central government, and but we'd like to be at a point where we can have a sense of what we want, where it might be, and then we can start to pursue what those funding lines look like. But at the moment there isn't.
Could I just test that with you, Lawrence?
Yeah.
What you're asking for is, do we have a mandate for the community with regards to moving forward with this? This piece of work came out of the last long-term plan. Correct me if I'm wrong. Gwen Compton asked for some money with regards to doing a feasibility study. This is where this has come from, but it wasn't driven by a specific request by the community per se. So whether at this stage or at what stage, or really the question is, at what stage do we need to go to our community to be asking, do you want this?
My reassurance that I've heard in this moment, and probably my question was, is the work that is being proposed as the next steps are not requiring a specific budget. It's under business as usual for staff.
Yep.
Right.
And at some point, if there is a specific requirement, we have to have gone through a process of consultation really with our community to say, we're now going to step into spending some money that we haven't got as business as usual. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
So that's the clarity that I've just received from staff.
You happy with that, Kathy? That was an issue that Kathy had as well. Nigel, hang on. Sorry, Lawrence. Yep. Nigel.
Yeah, just for me, it's about what are the questions that we're going to ask. So in terms of recommendations, the H is gone. I would have put the line through F and G as well. But I'm just wondering, does what's proposed here, does that allow for a discussion to identify the scope of what it is that we want, not just what it is that we can afford right now? And I take Lawrence's point that we also had people through the LTP process coming and telling us that this is something that they really wanted as well. So there's that's a contentious thing. It could be that this costs $40 million if we do it right, and that obviously is something we have to go back to the public and say, are you cool with that? Of course they will be, but because Kathy's going to underwrite the cost anyway. So So for me, it's about are we able to have a process? Will these recommendations allow us a process to identify the scope of what the vision for
I hear what
this
you're
might
saying,
be
Nigel.
beyond the specific.
Do you think we need to add a recommendation there asking for the space for those conversations?
Yeah, because I mean, F kind of covers it. It's just that it's.
I don't think it was very well. I don't think
it sounds a little. It sounds less ambitious than I would have liked. So,
Yes.
But I mean, even once you go to E, then you kind of, it's all open after that anyway.
Yeah. Could I suggest, and we'll go to you in a second, Rob, that we're going to have a cup of coffee and a tick.
Yeah.
That before we pass these recommendations, that we perhaps have I think we might want to word something that's asking for some space for further discussion to be considered at the next level up. As such, we can discuss that and then come back and do the recommendations after a cuppa. Is the table amenable to that?
I'd also like to hear from Kim again as well, because if she's amenable. Oh, sorry.
Are you still there, Kim?
No, she's gone for morning tea.
She might have popped off. Oh, yep. No. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Did you hear what Nigel was referring to? We're just thinking we may be having a coffee and putting a recommendation asking for more space to discuss the potential parameters of this as a recommendation.
Yeah. Just because there's a lot of questions, and I get it's a feasibility, but just just about what's the word for it? The recommendations as they stand seem to sound like we're going ahead with planning the building instead of going ahead with finding out more.
Yeah, that was my concern. That's why I dropped H and that sort of stuff. But we can perhaps word something while we're in a break, which we can pop up and see if you agree with.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure whether we needed that to so that the council staff could progress it, but maybe because there's no mention that to carry on the feasibility, it just goes straight on to we're going to investigate this, and whereas the top recommendations mention feasibility.
So okay, no, we can work on that, Rob. Sorry,
thanks, Martin.
you okay with that,
Sorry,
Kim?
thanks, Kim. Yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah, no,
Rob?
just going back to that integration thing, I'm putting sort of an urban panel hat on now as an architect. I'm just hearing a little bit of the detailing going on, a little bit concerned that we're siloing it a bit. I think when we plan it, we really want to take into account the proposed community centre, the existing aquatic centre, and the civic centre that seems to be developing, and look at the whole lot, not just silo it in the corner. I know you're doing that, but I just want reassurance that we're going to look at the whole lot.
I can reassure you, we're looking at the whole lot.
We've got a town centre plan that's due for upgrade at the moment. I'm picking that this will also be a part of that conversation. Well, I'd certainly indicate, and we can maybe build that into it as well.
That's right.
Because one of the
corridor.
and we've got the issue that there's a road going to be going through here as well, so we just need to make sure that that's factored into the conversation potentially with regards to what we might be looking at doing as well.
Yeah, I've already discussions with our PMO team around that development as well and how that would look as well, so make sure that we don't compromise one against the other. So, yeah.
No, that's great. Lawrence?
I'm happy with the suggestion we take a break and work on some recommendations. I would suggest that my perspective, just to make it ultra clear to people reading minutes later, that we have a recommendation that notes that this work is contained within current council budgets.
Yep. Good point.
Because we're not spending money that we don't have an authority to do anything with at the moment.
I think it's very, very prudent. Thank you, Lawrence, for highlighting that. Janet?
I think we're in danger of overthinking this.
I
think the recommendations, sorry, I just want to give my point of view. I think they're actually fine as they are, because G just says, agree that officers should undertake a detailed investigation into the provision of a community indoor court facility. It doesn't say this one. It doesn't say anything about even this feasibility study. It's just saying a community indoor court facility, including understanding any benefits and including a community centre. It's really open. I think it's actually fine as it is. I think if we do any more, we're in danger of making decisions today about the benefits or otherwise of what's proposed and all sorts of other things that we shouldn't be making decisions on today. I think in actual fact, the recommendations as they stand allow that flexibility in exactly what we've been saying that we want. So I would be in favour of just moving them, adding one about noting that noting that this work will be undertaken using current operational budgets. And that's fine, I reckon. And we could save ourselves half an hour of wordsmithing and, you know, because actually there's a bit more on the agenda today, and we do have a council meeting at 1:30. So I think these are actually fine as they are.
Thank you
and
for
I'd
your...
be happy to move them,
Cool.
actually,
Thank you for your...
including that extra recommendation.
That's your call
So
to
I've
make.
moved.
Eh?
So I've moved the recommendations as they stand and the extra recommendation.
So you're okay.
So
Thank you for taking
just see
the
if
lead of the
anybody
chair,
seconds.
Madam Mayor, but that's absolutely fine. These have been moved. Do you have a seconder? Can I just get clarity on exactly what it is you're moving, please?
So A to G
A to G.
plus another recommendation that the Social Sustainability Committee notes that this work is being undertaken using current budgets.
Do I have a seconder? That's seconded by Rob. Mayor Holbrook, you're right for comment?
Yeah. So I think I've moved these recommendations because they respond to the report that we've had in front of us today. I think the report is an excellent one, and what we're moving today is that we're supporting council staff to do some further work on a indoor sport court facility.
Yep, I'm going to flag I'll be adding an additional recommendation after we've had coffee, but happy to support this recommendation. Does anyone else want to debate?
Oh, right, okay. Far be it from me to disagree at all, but I will, just for the sake of discussion. The see, I can't support H because H has got a line through it anyway. So
No, H isn't being supported. We're just so just for clarity here, we're doing recommendations A through to G, as suggested previously, with a additional recommendation with regards to noting that this work was in the current working budgets, and I'm flagging that I'll be adding another recommendation after the break. With just so it's got a chance to do some wording with regards to ensuring that space is allowed for further discussion around the parameters of this conversation.
in that case, as always, I find myself in a position of complete acquiescence with the mayor.
Excellent. So if I could have all those... Oh, sorry, Kathy. Oh, is it...
Just on D, it's got a 3 indoor court facility with community.
Yep.
Well, that's being a bit too specific.
Well, don't forget, Kathy, what we've received here is a needs assessment and that sort of stuff. So with regards to the report, it's referring to a recommendation based on the needs assessment. It's not one that has to be followed through on. That's the whole idea of trying to keep this as an open conversation.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favour? Aye. All those against? That's passed. Flagging that there'll be another recommendation for this 8.3 after the break, which I would pick will be very, very, very short process. So we have a 10-minute break, and if I could ask ladies at the front, I'll come and ask if you'd like a tea or coffee as well. Thank you for your patience, by the way, much appreciated.